John Ruhlman, it is a pleasure to see you again, my friend.
You said this is always a pleasure of mine as well.
When you had the food truck lady in, and this is a business where the employees aren't making a whole lot of money, and the illustration that she gave and that you gave, because you were able to get her, all of her employees, great medical coverage. It didn't cost her, as the owner of the business, very much money, and it basically didn't cost the employees anything. And you had to convince them to get medical insurance, even though you sit there and you say, it's not going to cost you anything, but you get all these wonderful benefits. And it was a big challenge to get those people to go ahead and sign up for something that wasn't going to cost them anything, but because they're so used to the idea that by signing up and paying for medical insurance or even getting it for free, they're going to be out of pocket massive quantities of money before the coverage kicks in, money that they don't have, like that $4,000 out of pocket. That was wild, man. That was amazing to me.
I mean, it's a great story. It's something that we've done with a lot of the businesses here in the area, and you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think when she mentioned it, most of the people that she had employed never ever had health insurance, so they're preconditioned to just say no, I can't afford it. It's not something I can even do. I can't even contemplate it. And if I got it, I couldn't even afford, as you said, the out of pocket expenses. So, by us being able to go in there and orchestrate not just a plan, but an entire healthcare portfolio, we were able to completely minimize their out-of-pocket expenses and get them extremely affordable coverage. I mean, I think one of them, I had to convince them it was like $5 a month. I had to convince them, like, hey, that $5 a month is worth it for you to get the insurance.
one physical a year, it's worth that.
I had to explain to him that the secondary coverage was actually going to pay him for getting his preventative care. I was like, that outweighs the cost that the $5 a month you're paying for the entire year.
Whole year.
The whole year.
Right. That goes back to that idea that they have allocated X amount for a physical, for example, and if you get a $200 physical, you might get a check for the balance that may be $400 approved. You're going to get the $200 as a check from the insurer because you went to someplace less expensive. Now, if you went and got a physical that was $500, you're going to be out of pocket $100. But that's the choice of the patient. But also, it's an illustration, a nice segue to point out that you have a team which will help your insureds find the good providers that do it for less money, putting them in a position where they're going to get a check.
And a lot of times that's the labs. That's the biggest benefit too is, do you do the labs in the doctor's office? That's usually very expensive because they're going to bill it as hospital pricing. So, a lot of times it's just tell them, listen, you can go down the road to any of these, direct lab facilities and you can get it for $60.
Yeah.
Why go pay $500 running it through the doctor's office?
Well, and you know me, I do commercials for affordable imaging services, and you don't have to pay $5,000 at the hospital to get your CT scan. You pay like $600 or whatever. And there is a huge difference between the check that they're going to issue and the actual out-of-pocket cost. So, props and kudos for all that you're doing. I know you've helped a lot of my listeners over the years. And you brought someone with you today.
Yes,
I brought to introduce everyone to your guest.
Yes, absolutely. I brought a friend of mine, Eric Hamberg with Rick Sayer Financial. Not only is he a friend, he's actually a client of ours. And, what I really like is working hand in hand with a lot of the businesses that we actually help represent. And, one of the things I wanted to bring today was a financial planner because I believe in that as well because, when I deal with a lot of the clientele that we're talking to, small business guy, the guy that has a few employees or the guys that have, a lot of employees, a lot of them don't really have strong long-term plans, right? It's what's on my schedule today? What am I going to do today? They look at the very here and now. And, one of the takes that we do when we help our clients set up their health insurance plans is, my goal is to show you, hey, here's your good short-term goal. This is what we're going to do today. This is what's going to be good for the year. But I want to package that with good long-term options that can help pay for the big things that are going to come up in the future that we know that are going to be there. So I brought Eric here today because he's going to talk a little bit about some of the things that they do, but most importantly, kind of that same structure for our clients.
Fair enough. Eric, good to meet you. I'm glad to see you and appreciate your joining the program today to talk about a real-life illustration of what John Ruhlman and the team at Cover Cincy are capable of doing for folks. Let's talk about, before we dive into what he was able to do for you, we're going to have to be able to contrast that with the way life was before John and his team came along. So what did you have and what was your experience before you teamed up with John?
Yeah, so thanks, John, for having me on here. And Brian, thank you for being on the show. I wish I would have met John and his team years ago, or I guess say maybe 5 to 10 years ago, closer to 8 specifically. But prior to that, I was self-employed, so I had the self-employed insurance, which anybody out there self-employed and paying for it knows it's not cheap, and it's not necessarily the greatest coverage. Or you have to be very specific on who you can't see, or else you're gonna open up your mailbox one day and have a nice nasty healthcare bill. So so prior to John, I was on a health what do they call it, a health share insurance type plan.
Oh yeah.
There's nothing wrong with them. It was great what we believed for at the time when it was just my wife and I. However, I was graced with 2 sets of twins. I have
there's a life changer.
I have an 8-year-old girls, and then I have 5.5-year-old boy and girl. So with that, I was on the health share plan with both of those pregnancies for my wife, and each time, 2 separate years, we spent north of $24,000 each year out of pocket.
Oh my!
So that's just your premiums you pay each month. That's your max out of pocket. It was just like one thing after another, and it's wild how expensive it can be and can't be, and what we should and shouldn't have access to.
Well, Eric, I guess it's sort of a question for both of you. My understanding is when you're on one of those, they call MediShare plans.
Well, MediShare is a company, but they're more like Christian like share plans.
Yeah, okay, because I've heard that. Yeah, one of them's got like Bible or something into it. But haven't you said or confirmed here on this show that they don't always have to pay? There's no defined specific set of benefits in terms of their obligations to pay for any given claim? Don't they have flexibility on whether or not they even approve a claim, or did I misunderstand that?
Yeah,
component?
there's actually part of, well, technically speaking, it's not a contract. So that's a one big thing.
There's a problem in and of itself.
Absolutely, especially
my
with your
lawyer hat on.
So
it's kind of a set of guidelines, really.
It's kind of like a handshake, right?
Okay.
Yep.
So if you actually read the bottom of most of these plans, they actually say you are responsible for your own claims. We will choose to share them or not.
Isn't that what I just said?
Yes.
Okay.
That's verbatim what's on the bottom of their brochures that you actually get onto. So that's one of the things I always tell a lot of clients is like, listen, you're a small business owner, right? You're going to go out and do a $100,000 job for someone and not have a contract signed, guarantee you payment, right? Or vice versa, the guy getting the contract done, they handing a bunch of money and going, I hope you come back and fix my house, and that's, at the end of the day, it's your life. And he obviously provided a wonderful example of why it doesn't work. I don't care if the claims are approved or not. He was out of pocket $24,000 in 1 year. That's just
beyond many people's ability. It just does not work out.
And the other side to that is that was what we had to pay. But when you went for the test, we were at the hospital. We had to upfront a lot of those expenses before we were reimbursed from the company. So it's not just, yes, we were out of pocket the $24,000. It was also on top of that, we had to pay monthly payments until we received it all. Luckily we never had an issue, but that was the big risk, and I knew it going in was if something happens, whether it's me or these other members of the plan, and all of a sudden they can't pay, or there's multiple people with massive healthcare bills, and now the company can't pay, it's a risk.
Oh, it's a huge risk, and let me just throw a little example in there, which scares the hell out of me if I had been in that position, because 5, 6, however many years ago when I got diagnosed with cancer, my treatment protocol involved a bag of agent that cost $13,000, and every time I went in there to get my drip, that basically was $13,000. And if I didn't have insurance to cover that, that was going to be a check out of my pocket or a credit card run through until such time as maybe this sharing arrangement might pay me back. Yep. So that's just an untenable situation. All right, so with that, you run into this guy, John Ruhlman.
Yep.
How'd you end up running into John, and how is it that he made your life so much better?
So I ran into John with his brother Jason. No longer lives in the area, but I met him at a gym actually. We try to be health conscious. And it kind of just hit it from there. I have an insurance license. I absolutely hate insurance. And I'll be honest with you, I have my wife does all of our claims. I don't touch it. I don't get it. The codes, it just drives me insane how inefficient it is. So when we ran into John, it was more personal side. That was the first thing we came in contact with was, the personal insurance. And then it was also, well, how can I help my clients? I'm younger, obviously younger than 65, but Medicare is a whole different animal in and of itself.
Right.
So we need to have professionals that understand it, not just sell you a product or sell you a policy and you never hear from them again. I mean, one of the nice things about John and his team was when we submit claims or we have claims and they don't go through because the insurance carrier wants to deny them or reject them, as they quite often do, we can reach out to his team and Jason and say, hey, there's an issue here, and they're on it, right? They're on it to help us push it through. And I think that's critical because a lot of people don't understand it. I mean, I have the license.
Right.
I still don't understand it.
No, I'm with you. Listen, it's funny you bring it up because my wife, when I met her, she's a nurse. She's a 10-year nurse, and she is an attorney for one of the largest hospital systems in the country. She handles all facets of these medical bills that come in, right? I don't have to deal with them. I just hand them over to her, let her deal with it. It's like tax season when we get taxes done. She puts everything in together. I take it over to the accountant. I pay the bills throughout the year, but that's her job responsibility. I was an attorney for Anthem, Blue Cross, and Blue Shield for 8 years, man. And I don't want to deal with, understand, or even learn about the complexities of these explanation of benefits, ICD-11 codes. I don't want to spend an hour. I don't want to spend 5 minutes on the phone with an insurance company trying to figure it out.
Yep.
And, I consider myself fairly intelligent when it comes to these types of matters, but that's where John's teams come in. You don't have to spend a minute on the phone with the insurance company. It's spend a minute on the phone, call John and his team, and let them take the ball and run with it and figure it out for you.
Yep.
Right? I mean, that right there, that's worth so much money by itself.
Oh, the headache of not dealing with it at night and just knowing I'm going to get an update from John and the team the next morning or that following week. I mean, it's priceless in our opinion.
Well, I have a note here, and I brought up my own personal cancer experience. I should have looked down first. You had a personal experience with a family member involving a cancer bills?
I did. Yeah, it was, how long ago was that? 5 or 6 years ago now. And I've told John, I'm never terribly specific with it, but I mean, what I do in our profession, I've seen bills just wreck houses and wreck families.
Oh, yeah.
The size of them. And I've seen.
Since a leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States.
I mean, I've seen $250,000 gone in months. Cancer, like unfortunately, what you've had to go through. I mean, those bills are astronomical.
Yeah, they are.
And somebody who doesn't have insurance, or when they don't have insurance, I just say, well, you're just self-insuring. That's what you're choosing to do, whether you want to or not. You're self-insuring, and if something happens, I mean, you're in for a fight. Not just physically and whatever you're going through, but also on the financial side. And we had a family member who north of $250,000 in bills that he couldn't pay. He couldn't afford.
Oh, that's such a shame.
So,
that's the importance of reaching out to John and a team that covers Cincy, because you won't have to worry about that. It's like going without, disability insurance, or, it gives you peace of mind. This is not going to be a problem for you. The worst case scenario can happen in your life from a medical perspective, but if you got the right coverage in place, it's not going to bankrupt you. I mean, think about how you just exhale and sort of relax as to that aspect of your life. Yes, you got politics and all the other crap that goes on in the world you got to worry about, enough out there to depress you, but something looming over your head like, oh my God, what if? Or, a family member calls you and said, I'm in the hospital emergency room right now, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, geez, I don't have coverage. Man, it can be such a life-destroying event.
Or you don't go.
Or you don't go
because you don't have it, and then it just explodes from there.
Right. Annual physical. Oh, why do I need that? I feel healthy, and I felt healthy too, until I got a cancer diagnosis. It's like, where'd this come from? Well, it's because I stayed up on my medical care, and I found out pretty early. But there you have it.
And that's what we hear all the time too. It's well, I'm healthy, I don't need it. I'm like, but you insure everything else. I mean, what is the one thing you should be insuring? You, right? I mean, your health is paramount over your car. I mean. Like
if you're
the
not
boat,
here.
I mean, you'd be surprised how many clients I talk to that, I got a boat, or I got I got a razor, I got a real nice truck. I'm like, but you don't have health insurance. That doesn't really make sense in a day, and especially when you start talking to families. And that's a scary thing to think about too, because what would you do for your kid?
Yeah.
I'd sell everything if I had to. But. That's why we make sure the good coverage is enforced, so you don't have to. The goal is not to change your life and not have to worry about those decisions that you're going to have to make to cut corners. But when we put a package together, the goal really is that there'll be enough money left over, so it'll take care of your bills and your whole life, and you just worry about getting better. That's the goal with everybody that we talk to.
No question about it. And that number, you want to reach them, it's again covercincy.com, covercincy with a Y or I.com. It's 513-800-CALL, 513-800-2255. I know that's something listeners are going to really important to write down, because I always say, spend a couple of minutes to initiate the conversation. John and his team will take the ball and run with it, get back with you, ask all the questions they need from you by way of information. So this is a mere expenditure of time to put you in a far better place. And in terms of going back to Eric and your personal experience, I know from what you summarize in your pre-John Ruhlman covers Cincy experience, it was expensive and you had a lot of out-of-pocket responsibility. And, of course, the $24,000 in that 1 year really, really hits that one home. How's it been since then?
Since then, like I just mentioned, I don't have to worry about it anymore. Part of that's my wife. She takes care of it. It's a lot cheaper. I want to say we saved, and some of these plans are income-based, obviously, so the income makes it either more expensive or maybe a little bit less expensive. We've saved almost 25 to 30% in premium, just monthly premium, just by switching to John. That's just the financial side. We've got better coverage. I can see, for the most part, whoever we want to see, and I don't have to worry about, hey, I wonder if I'm getting the check from Joe down the street next month to offset this physical. It's just a peace of mind. I think it's just knowing whether I feel, and I have kids, so they're jumping on trees, climbing trees, they're doing everything. I don't have to worry. One of them breaks an arm or gets stitches, flips off a trampoline. What am I going to do?
And you don't have to have that question in your mind going, well, did he really break it? Maybe, because
Walk it off.
Because it's not a question anymore. Once you have the coverages, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, true. Now, have you been able to use John's team? Because I know the other component of this, working out claims, one extremely important component of what his team does after you're insured through him, but also finding good physicians that don't charge nearly as much, which allows you to take advantage of savings. Have you ever used that service that John's team offers?
We have. I can't say that often. We've been fortunate enough where we haven't had many health issues to deal with it. But the one right now we're dealing with a claim. We kind of did it ourselves for a little while, made that mistake of trying to fight the insurance company, and John was like, why don't you let me help you? And we were fine with
Here, let me do the work.
For 3 months, and it wasn't getting nowhere. And now, all of a sudden, we're getting the information back from the insurance carrier, and hopefully that check will come in the mail here soon. But, it's just knowing we got to give them what happened, John and his team, and let them run with it. They'll get hold of the insurance carriers. They'll let us know if we need to submit anything extra or additional. It's just knowing they're on our side. I think that's it. And if there's an issue, let them know.
And his biggest issue was he had 2 coverages, and the hospital didn't even bill the secondary. So now we got to play the game of reaching back to the hospital, get all the information they needed to do to actually file the claim and resubmit everything, because they weren't doing their job for their patient at the end of the day.
And that is, I think, critically important, dealing with you, John, and your team, and how you put together a package of insurance policies. You have several, perhaps, different insurance carriers, each one handling a different facet of the coverage. And that's where some people might be confused, like, I don't know which card to give them. I don't know how this, and they didn't want to take this one card. And that aspect alone can be confusing even for your own clients. So, again, you are there to make sure that the hospital does it right, that they submit the appropriate claims, so they ultimately get submitted appropriately under the appropriate policy. So that's a valuable component for something which most people are typically like, I have one card, I hand it to them, they scan it, and then my claim is denied by my insurance carrier because I haven't met my out-of-pocket liability yet.
Mm-hmm. And then that's a big thing. So we can either be preemptive, let us know before you do it, or like in Eric's situation, just get us involved when you start running into a situation. The quicker, the easier it is for us, so you don't have to deal with it yourself. And that's what I've built my business on, is that customer aspect, making sure that we're helping you along the way in every facet. But the other thing we really wanted to bring Eric here today too, Brian, was just really talking about, like I said, the long-term goals, right? And a lot of our big things, especially now that we're been working a lot with the business owners in your area. So we're doing a lot larger groups, 20, 30, 40-man groups that, we've been able to go in there and really help completely readjust their plans. I mean, a lot of these guys are currently on group plans, just way overpaying, and they don't realize that we can go in there and break these groups up and move them to individual coverages. And, that's one of the biggest things that, especially working with a financial planner. I mean, some of these guys already are. And, we get a lot of referrals sometimes saying, hey, can you help my client? They would really like to save some money because at the end of the day, they're not investing. They have no long-term goals here.
Right.
And, that's one of the biggest things that, we can do with financial planners and these small business owners is like, hey, listen, what if we could save you 35% on your premiums, get you the better coverage like we talk about every week, but, what are you going to do with that savings?
Right. Don't spend it.
Don't spend
Sock it away.
Don't spend it because, remember, there's two facets to it, too. It's not just the premiums. It's those out-of-pocket expenses. We call them like shock claims. $24,000 for a couple of sets of twins. That's a shock claim. You weren't expecting that.
Nope.
That's a $50,000 turnaround.
No.
Most of us don't have that sitting around. So where do you get that money? Where do most of your clients go to get? They taking money out of their savings? They're taking out of their retirement portfolios. What happens when someone has $50,000 they owe?
Yeah, and maybe they'd be so desperate they would like tap into their 401k savings if they've got them, and what the penalties are on that, and how terrible it is for your future financial plan. And that's a phenomenon that's been going on for a while under the current, the situation we find ourselves economically. That is the wrong way to go. So you do a presentation for employers. You mentioned these larger groups that you're talking to. You sit down with all the employees and you explain and walk them through this. That provides a nice vehicle for you to go into the sort of, and look how much money is freed up that you can apply to your 401k program. Look, your employer's got employee matching. Take advantage of it. Now you're going to have some money freed up that you otherwise were spending on a monthly basis that you're currently used to spending right now.
Oh, yeah, and that's a huge piece, too, because a lot of these guys aren't doing it. A lot of these guys are just paying so much for health insurance. There's not additional money set aside to do a program like a 401k. And that's a huge thing. I mean, Eric can talk a little bit more why it's even benefit.
Yeah, I mean, the 401k, I always say there's really not any free money anywhere in life, but if you're working for an employer and they offer a match, I mean, at least do anything possible to get that free money, get that match, right?
Exactly.
That's 100% return. If they're giving you 3%, if you contribute 3%, do whatever is possible to make that 3% happen, if not more.
Exactly.
And a lot of people don't realize it, or I've got kids, life's in the way, I got bills, I got to do all this. Well, where are these bills coming from? And a lot of them are health related, whether it's because they didn't go to the doctor and now they have health issues, or because they're not active and they're creating these problems that their kids seeing. It's just a pass down effect. And getting in the employees itself, they got to figure out how to do it, and that's part of the long-term plan, right? That's what things are going to happen in your life. It's just when and how big and how much.
Yeah.
The employers have in my opinion, the employers, the owners of these small businesses, they sit in a very nice seat. Number one, they take a decent amount of risk to own the business, right? And they work on their business. The majority of these small business owners, their retirement plan is this business. They want to be able to sell it or transition it down to somebody else, and that's what they believe they're going to be able to retire on. And that's all great. I don't have any problem with that wanting to be an option or a plan. I just don't like that being their only plan. And when you can save, I mean, you've told me stories, $30,000 to $40,000 a year just on expenses from the employer by switching plans and payroll tax. It just blows my mind what somebody can do with $40,000, whether that's retain or bring in new talent.
Exactly. It's just a pile of money that you didn't have before. You were expending it previously. Now you don't have to. Sky's the limit on what you could use it for. And you mentioned employee retention. That was a brilliant component of his assistance with that the barbecue truck lady, because it's a transient group of folks. They're in the food service business. If they're offered another $1 an hour at a different place doing the same thing, they're leaving for the buck. But if they're walking away from an insurance plan like this, which literally gives them all of these benefits at almost no out-of-pocket expense, the value of that, and for employee retention in that type of business, is it's an indescribable benefit. It's like, wait a minute, I'm making an extra $1 an hour, but this is giving me all of these hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in insurance and medical insurance coverage, hell no, I'm not walking away from that. I like my employer.
That's what the HMAs and HSAs are. That's one of the benefits for those is the employers can offer it, and it's a bucket of money. If they decide to walk away, they lose.
That's right.
So it's a big employee benefit, and the more employers can take advantage of it, I think the better off their business will be, because they'll have employees that want to be there and want to stay there and want to help the business grow.
So that benefits the employers, it benefits the employees. Everybody gets medical insurance. They get to go to the doctors they want, and a lot of coverage from $1 up front. I like to use the phrase ultimate no-brainer, but again, I'll go back to the amount of time that it will take you to find out is so small in comparison to the potential upside. It's almost indescribable. So give John and the team a call. Just first, I think one of the better ways is just go to the website where you can fill a form out there, and you guys will take that and run with it. But as you always point out, and I think it's always important to illustrate, that information, the email address, the phone number, the information you provide John and his team is not going anywhere but within your operation. You do not sell it. If you go online and search for insurance along these lines, guess what? You are going to get inundated with gazillions of emails from every carrier under the sun trying to earn your business. And let John and his team keep that information and crunch numbers for you. You'll find out that it was worth the expenditure of time. It's 513-800-CALL, 513-800-2255. Cover Cincy with a wire.com. John, any further words?
I would say that's a big thing. You just kind of mentioned searching for health insurance online. I mean, I used to play that gambit. When I was a first insurance agent, I would buy my marketing through those type of companies. And what they were doing, they were a lead gen company. They would sell it to 5 agents, and one of those agents was another lead company that would then sell it to 5 agents, and just perpetual
and
growth,
and so
forth. So when I would reach
geometric progression,
and we always offer great services. So when I'm reaching out to them, like, well, you're like the 50th person that called me, and then they would just hang up, and I have there's no benefit for me to sell a lead that someone came to my website to other agents. I mean, we want to keep you in-house. You will deal with only me or my staff. I mean, that's the people that you'll be working with from here on out. Not a phone room. You're not going to be dealing with some agent that turns around tomorrow and he's gone, and now you're just dealing with an insurance company. Like I said, we've been here and doing business in the area for now 20 years, and we're here to stay.
Well, this is another edition of Rethink Healthcare Together with John Ruhlman from Cover Cincy and Eric Hamberg, who came from us from Rick Saylor Financial, to obviously illustrate the wonderful benefits that you too can enjoy working with John and his team. Eric, it's a real pleasure to have met you, and thanks for spending time with the listeners and John and me today.
I appreciate that, Brian and John. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Just tune in next week for another edition of Rethink Healthcare Together with John Ruhlman.